Welcome to Keep Talking, a podcast by the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. I'm your host, Sam Mador. Keep Talking is all about having honest conversations around mental health, lived experience, and hope. In this episode, we're joined by Mary Deacon, founder and chair of Bell Let's Talk. Later in the episode, we'll continue the conversation with the Foundation president and CEO, Starr Cunningham. I'm so glad you're here. Let's keep talking. Please be advised, this conversation may contain discussion of suicide. I am here with Mary Deacon. Hi, Mary.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here and for fitting us in.
No, great pleasure. Happy to be here.
We're actually recording this a week before Bell Let's Talk Day, but it's being launched on Bell Let's Talk Day, and we are taking full advantage of you being in Halifax today, Mary. So thank you so much for having this chat, because of course you're founder and chair of Bell Let's Talk.
I am. We started in 2010 with a blank piece of paper. Had a lot of conversations with people in the mental health community around the country, around the world, and came up with sort of a framework for what we would do. George Cope, who was the president of Bell at the time, we often, talked 3, 4, 5 years in that we had no idea. We believed that mental health was an issue whose time had come, and that it was time for a Canadian corporation to adopt mental health. No Canadian corporation had ever really put their weight, their brand behind mental health.
Yeah.
But it has exceeded our expectations in every way and really underscored for me that mental health was an issue whose time had come.
To think that it was 16 years ago is shocking to me. And I'm really curious to dig into your why, Mary. I mean, obviously, I know you said that nobody had really stepped up to connect to mental health in that way. What was your personal why for having these conversations?
For the 10 years before I worked at Bell, I was the president of the Center for Addiction and Mental Health Foundation, so a mental health and addiction hospital foundation in Toronto.
Yes.
I have to go to before that to give you the real why. And the real why really started in 1991 when I gave birth to my first child, Cecilia.
Yes.
And 2 weeks later, my youngest brother, who was a medical student at the University of Toronto, died by suicide. It is frankly impossible to, explain how that impacted my family, my parents.
And in 1991, too, where it's, at that time, I'm going to say the word nobody, but you felt probably like nobody was talking about it.
I wasn't talking about it.
Right.
I had no frame of reference. I knew nothing about mental health. The words had never crossed my lips. I knew no one who had, to my knowledge, a mental health issue. Simply wasn't part of the world I lived in. And I imagine, for most people, it would have been the same.
Yeah.
Which gives you a sense of how far we've come. But back in 1991, we weren't where we are today.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yes. So that really was the beginning for me of beginning to learn about mental health, what mental illness was. I didn't know that my brother was depressed, and yet he was a medical student.
Right.
No one noticed that he...
Did he know?
Well, I don't know if he knew.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because it's never something that we talked about. And then he was gone.
Yeah.
And, that is really changed my life, the life of everyone,
Yep.
In our family. Started me on a journey. At the time, I didn't work in mental health.
Right.
I worked in the not-for-profit sector. And an opportunity came along, which was when the amalgamation of 4 organizations became CAMH around the same time, a couple of years later. And I applied to run the foundation. I was a fundraiser. I felt somewhat uniquely qualified because I had the fundraising background and experience. I had personal lived experience, and I had passion. You know, I knew I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't a researcher, I wasn't a millionaire, but I could make a difference using the skills that I did have.
Yes.
And so I applied for a job that no one else wanted.
I'm sure they were grateful.
I mean that quite sincerely. Yes. You know, the leaders of the largest foundations or fundraising organizations in Toronto did not aspire. It wasn't considered a good career move, right?
Right. Well, of course. Yeah.
For all the reasons surrounding
that we've already said.
Yeah, around stigma. And so I applied for the job. I told my story. I had the credentials. They offered me the job. I started, and I built the foundation really from scratch because it was right after the merger. And it was a really critical time in mental health with some of the advances in research and science, and, you know, the understanding that mental illness was just that. It was an illness. It was a biologically based illness, and there were treatments that were possible. It wasn't a moral issue. Didn't have anything to do with being lazy or naughty or ignorant in any way.
Yeah.
And so it was a really exciting time to be involved. And I was working with the most incredible people, real leaders in research and care, with a vision of a way of treating mental health and addiction that was consistent with how we see it today, but they were really early, an early leader in all of that.
And it's also a very seamless transition, too, into having these conversations as part of when you started with Bell.
Yes, absolutely. But while I worked at CAMH, my other brother, Ted, also died by suicide.
Oh, my goodness.
And, you know, by that point, I was much more educated. My parents were more educated.
Yeah.
It didn't in any way minimize or
Didn't
reduce
make it easier that you
the
knew.
pain,
Yep.
the shock, the sadness, the loss. But I was surrounded by people who understood these issues and was able, you know, to get support. You know, and in between those two tragedies, I started seeing a psychiatrist, recognizing that, well, my mood was very low. Of course, I was always like that, and I just didn't know.
That's right, yeah.
But as a result of the deaths, I sought help. I started taking medication and came to the realization that I'd been depressed my whole life. You know, perhaps not the same as my brother David, and not the same as my brother Ted. David had depression. Ted had very, very severe OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, at a time when there were no treatments.
Right.
Starting medication changed my life. I remember the first day that I drove out of my underground parking garage in the condo that I lived in, saw that the sky was blue, and it made me happy. So, you know, it's one of the things about depression in particular is that you feel like everybody feels the same way you do. You are just lesser than them because they're able to do things and participate in things and feel joy in things. And so it was really about self-stigma.
Yes.
I learned a lot about that at that time.
That's such a good point. And I reacted visibly to you saying that because I also struggle with depression. And it's the realization that you don't know until you know.
Exactly.
Until that moment where you have started taking that medication or whatever the case is it's different for everybody, of course. And you realize, oh, this isn't how it has to be.
Exactly. I thought everyone was like me and I was just lesser because I couldn't do what they could do. It was a very positive experience, as you said. The journey for everyone is different, and different things. Clara Hughes, one of our early champions at Bell Let's Talk.
Yes.
For her, movement is medicine.
Yes.
Right? So for different people, whether it's faith-based or otherwise. There's different things that work for different people. But for me, medication and therapy were very important.
Absolutely. I'm very curious to find out from you, Mary, how things have changed. So if you think about 16 years ago when it first started, what is the difference that you've seen over the last 16 years?
I would say the biggest change has been in the amount of conversation, the degree of comfort for people talking about mental health and addiction. More about mental health than addiction.
Yes.
Still today, but a much more visible part of social discourse, higher political priority, people making larger philanthropic gifts to mental health organizations, people and companies willing to attach their names to those organizations.
Yes.
The amount of coverage in the press, the people who were involved, that would be the biggest difference. The normalization of mental health and the normalizing of the conversation around mental health. It's not perfect.
Right.
There's still a lot of stigma, different groups, different kinds of stigma, but a lot more awareness and acceptance. Still a ways to go.
Yeah, for sure. But wow, what a way to go. When I think about Bell Let's Talk, and now that I'm working with the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia, you guys have been a really big figure in partnering with the Mental Health Foundation. Why was that important for you guys to make those connections in different areas?
I knew very well that I went into CAMH. I was not a doctor. I was not a researcher.
Sure.
Right? I was not a mental health expert. So I wanted to and felt I needed to build relationships or build on relationships that I already had in the mental health community, which were pretty considerable as a result of my time at CAMH, to ensure that we had the best possible mental health expertise that was informing the decisions and choices that we were making. Given that the reason the majority of people with mental health issues say they do not seek help is because of stigma. So one would think that eradicating stigma, understanding what it was and how to unpack it and attack it would be job one. Anti-stigma was the focus of Bell Let's Talk Day for the first 10 years.
Amazing.
I would say the arc was really around awareness, acceptance, and action. And so it was a building up of awareness and acceptance for those first 10 years before we were able to move the focus, not away from stigma, but to build on it, to put a greater focus on access. It is great that more people feel comfortable talking about mental health, understand the signs and symptoms, young people willing to talk to their peers, their parents recognizing workplaces, schools, understanding, right? Creating demand on the system.
Yeah.
That's great, but the system really is not yet caught up with the demand. So the need for more and better mental health services is now, I would say, the biggest priority.
Yes.
Here and across the country.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. And I'm just going to go back to, you were saying about making those connections, Mary. And when did you make that connection locally here with the Mental Health Foundation?
So we were very, very fortunate to have a strong working relationship with Bell Alliant. Very early on, probably in 2010, I met Dawn Boylan. And
Love Dawn.
I love Dawn and have the privilege of working with Dawn still to this day. And she, was very generous in bringing me into her world and introducing me to people in Atlantic Canada, specifically here in Nova Scotia. And one of them was Starr. And I relied on Starr. I mean, one early example of my interactions with Starr was fairly early on, I thought, you know about first aid courses, right? The St. John Ambulance and the Red Cross, and they have first aid courses. And I took them growing up. I don't know anyone who really hasn't had to take one course from one of those organizations at some point in their developing years. So you learned, about signs and symptoms of heart attacks, or what to do if there was bleeding or broken bones, but you never learned anything about mental health. And so I wanted to explore whether there was a willingness to embed mental health into regular first aid programs. And it was because of Starr's relationship with, I believe it was the St. John Ambulance. She was on the board here, that she was able to introduce me to the right people. That then resulted in mental health first aid being built into the curriculum of that organization's basic first aid programs.
That's
and that
amazing.
was because of Starr's introduction. It really is about people and relationships.
100%.
And that's just a very early example. Starr has been a trusted advisor for these many years in many things that we do, bounce a lot of ideas, off or brainstorm with Starr a lot about different things. And Bell Let's Talk is better for it.
Oh, that's so lovely. And of course, with Let's Keep Talking, we were so grateful to have you here for the 11th Let's Keep Talking event in October. Tell us a little bit about that, Mary. I know Caitlin Morrison was our speaker that day. And how was it for you to be in the room during one of those events, knowing that it had such a history?
I mean, the origin story of that was Clara's big ride.
Yes.
So Clara Hughes in 2014 did her epic bike ride around Canada, stopping over 110. She did.
Is that what it was? Oh my gosh.
It was 110 days, of which only, I think, 10 days were rest days.
Wow.
And all the other days, she was either cycling or visiting a school or giving a speech or being somewhere in a community event. We worked very closely with many organizations, grassroots community organizations, to create opportunities for Clara to join their events and be part of what was happening in the community. And that was the origin story of Let's Keep Talking. So there was that first event where Clara came here and, Starr organized an event and Clara did what Clara does.
She's lovely.
And then she carried on around the country. But, Starr, in her wisdom, let's keep talking. We have to keep talking.
Yeah.
So let's make this an annual thing.
Love it.
Only one in the country, to my knowledge, who did that. And I would have loved to come for the 10th. I'm not sure why I didn't, but
because Clara was back.
Oh, Clara, right. Now I remember.
She was back
Clara
for the 10th.
Came back for the 10th anniversary, which is certainly appropriate and wonderful, the completing of that circle.
Yeah.
But I was delighted to come for the 11th. It was my first one.
Yes.
It was so moving, so moving to hear the stories, so moving to hear meet Caitlin. And it's exactly the kind of event. It epitomizes what I hope is the legacy of Bell Let's Talk, which is that we talk about and take action not just on Bell Let's Talk Day, but every day of the year.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I also love the theme for this year's Bell Let's Talk Day is taking a moment for your mental health. I absolutely love that. I love breaking it down into those simple moments. And I want to ask you, and I'm sure you're getting asked this all the time, Mary, how are you going to take a moment for your mental health?
When we were sort of thinking about how we would approach Bell Let's Talk Day this year, I talked with a lot of different people, mental health friends and colleagues and partner organizations around the country have obviously seen what we as a country have lived through in the last, year and a half, understanding the economic and political, globally, political uncertainty. In the face of all this uncertainty, isn't it good to know that there are things that we can all do to support our own mental health and well-being, right? At a time when we feel the world is out of control and we have no control, that we have control over the choices we make, to support our own mental health and well-being. And, as we worked along that, like most people, I sort of, yes, that's about meditation and mindfulness and breathing. Well, I learned so much about all the other things that help support your mental health and well-being. And, just one excellent example, and, we all experienced it during COVID. I spent so much time walking in the ravine systems near where I lived. Being in nature is a great example of something that you might not necessarily know or think of as something that you can do to support your own mental health and well-being. And exercise.
Yes.
And
movement is medicine. You said it already, and that's one of my favorite quotes.
Listening to music.
Yeah.
Having a pet. Digital detoxing, turning off that technology.
Yeah.
Spending time, like real time with real people, doing things together, sharing a meal, spending time together. There are so many, many things, some that might be more obvious than others. Regardless of whether you have a diagnosed mental illness or you don't, these are things, practical, simple things we can all do to support our mental health and well-being.
Yes.
So for me, some of the things that I do, and again, didn't ever really totally think of them as things that supported my mental health and well-being. I paint. I started painting during COVID.
That's amazing. Actually, I think you donated a painting to Mosaic here.
I did.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yes, I did. And that was a pleasure, and I'd be happy to do it again.
That's great. That's through CMHA, the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
So I started painting during COVID. It was very cathartic. I disappear for hours, and it's really a meditated form, as well as a form of expression of feelings. One of the things I lost during COVID was any sense of structure and routine.
Right.
And I've worked hard over the last number of years to try and reestablish structure and routine, which is very good for my mental health.
Right.
It's important for me and my mental health, not necessarily for everyone, but for me.
Yep.
And the thing that I was not able to bring back into the fold, so to speak, was exercise. I made some starts and a lot of stops. And then in
Sound
June,
like me, Mary.
And then in June of 24, I made the decision that I would get a personal trainer, and I would commit to working out twice a week with that trainer. And I've done it ever since.
Amazing.
I did a 5K little run. I guess we can't call them marathons, but for me it was a marathon.
That's amazing.
And I've kept that up, and it has been very, very good for my mental health.
That's great.
And recently I got a puppy.
Oh my gosh.
Who's named Lulu.
Cute.
There is evidence and research that shows that, having a pet, a dog, is very good for your mental health.
100%.
Structure,
I couldn't agree more.
unconditional love, making sure you get out and walk.
Yeah.
Because your little puppy
You're
needs...
doing it for them, not necessarily for you.
So all these benefits that you don't necessarily think of as being about your mental health. She's a joy and pleasure.
That's lovely. And that's what I love about the theme for this year is that by saying take a moment for your mental health, it's causing people, or will cause people to think, what are those little moments that I maybe wasn't considering as something that's going to help my mental health? And now I'm going to start considering it as that. I love that.
And they're so simple.
Yes.
That you can build many mental health moments into your daily life.
Yes.
Right? I'll give you an example. I could put away my phone, go for a hike with my sister.
Yes. Connection, exercise, social detox.
Right. Getting off the technology, spending time in nature, getting a little bit of exercise.
I should say social media detox, not social detox.
Yes, not social detox. That's what we did during COVID, unfortunately. Forced upon us. But that covers three things.
That's lovely.
Right?
Yep.
Finding ways to build those into our daily life.
I love it.
Is something we can all do
Yes.
To have a sense of control, to have agency, do something good for ourselves and do with others that supports our mental health and well-being at a time when we have so much uncertainty in the world.
Oh, I love it. Mary, that's such a great spot to end on. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation and looking forward to seeing how we can take a moment for our mental health today, Bell Let's Talk Day, and every day forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are continuing the conversation with Foundation President and CEO Starr Cunningham. Hey, Starr.
Hi, Sam.
That's a mouthful.
It is. My business card is this long.
That's right. Yeah. So, Mary Deacon, you, Starr, have a long relationship with Mary and Bell Let's Talk. Maybe we can go into a little bit of that relationship between the foundation and Bell Let's Talk.
I've had the pleasure of serving on the advisory committee for the Bell Let's Talk Community Fund for the last 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I was thinking it had been a while, but I was surprised when I looked back and realized it's been a decade.
That's great. 10 years for that. And then this was the 11th year for Let's Keep Talking, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So I helped them out by being on their committee, and then they certainly help us out by being the presenting sponsor for Let's Keep Talking. And so during that time, I've had the pleasure of reviewing grant applications that come into them. So as you know, we have community grants at the foundation, plus when I'm not reviewing those, I'm doing the Bell Let's Talk community grants.
Wow.
But it's wonderful to read about the projects that are happening, not just here in Nova Scotia, but all across the country. Because sometimes they'll pass along some grant applications from out west or Ontario. So I get to get a real sense of what's happening outside of our region.
Right, which obviously all of ours would be Nova Scotia based.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this year's theme for Let's Keep Talking, there's so many to keep talking.
I know.
There's a podcast, there's an event for Bell Let's Talk Day is taking a moment for your mental health.
Yep.
And I absolutely love that. What is it that you would do or are going to do for Bell Let's Talk Day to take a moment for your mental health?
Well, it's funny because Mary and I were just together and we were doing our thought bubbles, and mine came very quickly because if I'm taking a moment for my mental health, it's really going to work wonders. It means I'm going to be taking the dogs for a walk with no destination and no end time in mind. So often I, head out the door with the dogs and I'm like, okay, we have 12 minutes. Or, okay, we're going to do the loop that takes us by Butler Park, or we're going to go to this direction. I think what would be really good for my mental health would be just to open the door and walk outside with the dogs with no idea where we're going, how long we're going to be, what we're going to see along the way. So that's what I'm going to do on January 21st, today.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm totally going to steal that. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay, great idea, Sam.
Yeah, it's so great. It's a great partnership and ongoing.
Ongoing for sure.
Yeah.
No, Bell Let's Talk does some fantastic work. They've raised the awareness of mental illness and addictions, mental wellness in our country like nothing had before. And we're just very proud to be a partner and proud to share this time with them when it's all about talking, and keeping the conversation going. And Sam, just before we wrap up, I'd like to say happy Bell Let's Talk Day to the amazing founder of it all and my friend, Mary Deacon, all of your listeners, and to you too, of course. Our country, our province, and especially our communities are more hopeful, connected, and kind as a result of this incredibly successful initiative.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.